Hello and welcome to the Esther Needs to Catch a Break experience. I am your unwilling host, Ezra. And today we're doing Minecraft, which is what you're seeing. Background. Woo! I say it like that because I have already recorded that. That's past me from last night when I was honestly really bored and I just wanted to play Minecraft, but then I realized I was playing in the recording world, so I was just like, well, might as well, right? But for the audio, instead of just some music, instead I'm going to gush about the thing I was obsessed with finishing. We're talking about A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, so I guess we should start with trigger warnings and a spoiler warning. First of all, I'll be talking and comparing, to be honest, the book and the series. Because I think it's fun. Number one. Number two, Good Girl's Guide to Murder is about, you guessed it, murder. But there are a few other things. There's just a few mentions, just a couple. Some of the plot entirely focused around it. Of essay, and a lot of stuff around that. Particularly drugging. So, yeah, that's gonna be talked about in this video. But, yeah, one second. So to start off, let me just read off what the frickin' synopsis of this book. Is synopsis right word? I don't know. Let me read off what's on the back of this book. This is a story of an investigation turned obsession. Pretty and popular high school senior Andy Bell was murdered by her boyfriend, Sal Singh, yeah, who killed himself. Oh, and suicide. Fuck, forgot about that. It was all anyone could talk about, and 5 years later, Pip sees how tragedy still haunts her town. Now a senior herself, Pip decides to re-examine the closed case for a final project. At first, it's just to cast doubt on the original investigation. Jesus Christ! But soon she discovers a trail of dark secrets that might actually prove Sal innocent, and the line between past and present begins to blur. Someone in Fairview doesn't want Pip digging around for answers, and now her own life might be in danger. Now, I am going to spoil the hell out of this book and the series, which is based off of this book. First season for the series, although at the time of recording and the time that you'll see this, unless something happens, and I doubt that, there is only the one season, which is based solely off the first book. Why am I talking about both? Because there are differences that I want to point out, because I noticed them while I was reading, and I was just like, damn, that's a really interesting difference. But yeah, that's the synopsis. If you think you would find that interesting as a story, and you want to read all the twists and turns before I spoil literally all of them, as I said, I am here to gush about this book, okay? I adore it. It's, I have a paperback copy here. It's $11 in the US and $15 in Canada. So, other places, I don't know. It's a good book. It's real fun. I highly recommend it. And now I'm going to spoil all of it. So, spoil warnings. And I guess trigger warnings would probably be smart here. Entirely. Mentions of murder. death and suicide, respectively, drugging, essay, and also, just a tad of animal cruelty. We'll get to that. So, for the first part of this book, it's pretty much an opening with Pip, who are. One second. Let me just. Whose full name is Pippa Fizz and Bory? Look, man, I can't read for shit. Pip decides to, as the synopsis suggests, look into the murder slash no, just murder, actually, of Andy Bell, who, as has been said multiple times, was murdered. God, I'm not good at describing books. And it starts because she just kind of wanted to prove Sal innocent, because she didn't think Sal did it, unlike literally everyone else in the town. And so she started an investigation, and as well was using it as her paper. And a very small difference in the book, I believe it's her advisor for, like, the paper that is just like, hey, don't cross too many boundaries, don't reach out to either of the families. Literally the second page, because the first one is the whole premise of, hey, I want to look into this case as my whole thing for a paper, her senior capstone project proposal. The supervisor pretty much goes, this is a very sensitive topic, do not, you can do this project, but don't cross any ethical lines, and don't contact either of the families. So obviously Pip does not listen to that, but also the main thing is, I believe in this series it was not her supervisor that told her that. I'm pretty sure it was her mom. Her mom just goes, Pip, you can do this project, but don't cross any boundaries and do not reach out to those families. And Pip doesn't listen to that either. So Pip goes out of her way to investigate. She contacts Sal's brother, and they start investigating. Pip interviews a bunch of different people to get perspectives about how people were in the past and whatnot. Just an actual investigation. She reaches out to, like, news places and, like, actual police stations to understand how, like, kidnappings are gone through and, like, how police react to that and all that, which is really good. Really, really good research all around. And for part one, it's all kind of fine. It's just her investigating, her asking questions, her making enemies, I'm gonna be honest. And nothing, like, too huge, minus, like, one thing that I'll get to in a second, is all that different from the series in the book. The book came first, obviously. And they stick pretty true to it throughout most of part one. Biggest difference being Max Hastings. And we'll get to him. Oh, trust me, we'll get to him. And how that whole interview went. But that's pretty much the only difference in part one. Now let's part one is you know, looking through a book to find what whoop. Part 1 is 11 chapters. And it ends with Pip being on a... I'm trying to think, what would the word be? A camping trip with her friends, as it is one of their birthdays. I forget whose, and I'm not checking. And they notice someone is watching them, and some of them chase that person down. And when they get back, Pip finds a note, and for the friends that are awake, they swear up and down that none of them put that note there. And when she read the note, it just said stop digging, and her name, obviously. And that is the end of part 1, which is yeah, that's kind of scary, no? I'm gonna be honest, it took me about 3 days to get through part 1, and I was sitting there and I was just like, okay, this is pretty true to the series, man. It's like very minor things that I don't truly... It's fun seeing differences. And man, let me tell you. And then part 2 happened, and I was just like, okay. Well. Alrighty. So, part 2, obviously, Pip's just slightly concerned. Because, you know, threats. But that doesn't deter her. Really should have, you know. So as she continues, she reaches out to more and more people, and ends up learning a few things about our dear victim. Biggest thing, she was a drug dealer. Hey, remember what I was saying about drugging people? Yeah, that kind of comes up. So, as Pip is trying to figure out what happened to Andy and what happened to Sal, because at this point, her and Sal's brother, Ravi, I think, have just a sinking suspicion that Sal didn't kill himself and was instead murdered. So that's a thing. So as they are further going down this path to try and figure out what happened, something that they find out, because they end up going through a lot, honestly. Who knows, maybe I'll make a better video than me just ranting about this eventually. With more points actually focused, maybe a goddamn script. That is not this video, though. They find out that at parties that were called calamities, Andy was dealing drugs. So that was the whole thing that they had to deal with. And so, in order to try and figure out more about this whole drugs thing, because, you know, you kind of need to look into that. they end up deciding to break into her house. Not even joking. The amount of crimes that Pip and Ravi commit in this are wild. Especially further that this is called A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. And the very interesting thing is, in the series, especially in the show, I suppose I should say, especially, it is clear how, compared to in episode 1, Pip is not okay to do certain things. So in episode 1, she was at the store with her friends. This didn't happen in the book. She's at the store with her friends, and she's the distraction. And, like, so she's talking to this woman, and she's just like, are you the distraction to distract me from a crime? And, like, she just straight up says yes. And it's a whole thing. And, like, that doesn't happen in the book, but it does show how nervous Pip is to commit crimes. And then she does this project, and she was just like, what's that? Crimes? Let's do it. Interrogating people? Yes. Blackmailing people? You betcha. Breaking into dead girls' houses? No better idea. Like, it's such a bizarre switch up that Man, I was sitting there confused. So, yeah. So they break into a dead girl's house to try and find her drug stash. They do not find it. The places where it's hidden in the book is different than where it is in the series. In the series, it's hidden in Andy's stuffed animals. In the book, it's in the closet under a loose floorboard. And in the series, the drugs are actually there, which was a whole thing that we'll get back to. But in the book, there is nothing under the floorboards, and they're just like, oh no, how are we supposed to get this this burner phone that they were looking for? They don't find the burner phone, but they do find a planner that gives them a little bit of information that they use well. And kind of at this point, I was sitting there and I was just like, huh, that's interesting. And so as time went on and I read further, at some point, me, like a fool, mind you, decide to go, wonder when that whole thing with Barney happens. Now, Barney is Pip's dog. And by God, I should not have asked that question because it immediately happened, like, the next page. Like, it was just like, she went outside, she went on a walk, and dog did not come home with her, is all I'm gonna say on that for the moment. And I'm gonna be honest, it was extremely late when I read that part, and I was just like, I can either continue, or I can shut this book and go to bed. You want to know what I didn't do? I did not shut that book and go to bed, even though that I had a test in the morning. I passed that test, if you're wondering. But by God, was I tired. So, God, so much happens in this book, and I don't have a cohesive, there's the word, cohesive path to talk about all of it. Oh, there was actually another person that was kind of changed a lot, other than Max, who we'll get to. I promise. I have a whole rant about him. um, who is Natalie, who in the series is a lot different in the book. Like it's wild. Cause like everybody else up to that point had been generally speaking the same. Oh, there's something that I did not mention that I kind of have to mention now. Also didn't give enough trigger warnings. Yeah, you know, there's some fuckery with consent. That's all I'm gonna say with that. Due to ages and whatnot, fuckery with consent. Okay, okay. Jesus Christ. Nat was kind of the one of the reasons that in the book Pip was kind of just like, oh, Andy probably wasn't that great of a person. She wasn't, cause she kind of shared Nat's nudes all over the school, and that's not great. Then again, what Nat did also wasn't great, but honestly, maybe a little dessert. I shouldn't say that. Anyway, so in retaliation, Natalie left a threatening note in Andy's locker. Also, she's a convict. I probably should have said that. She's under house arrest. She's got charges against her. Which wasn't a thing in the show. Like, at all, I don't think. She was a very different person. She was just like, I like you, Pippa, in the show, and in the book, she's just like, I despise you. So it's a complete and utter change, and I was frankly baffled by it, but, you know, it is what it is. So, as the mystery unfolds, they're trying to find this guy. Cause they're trying to find the murderer. Cause at this point, they had known that Sal was innocent because they found a picture via committing more crimes, to be honest. They found a picture online proving that. So a whole point of this is that supposedly Sal had his friends lie for an alibi, but it is revealed in this book at some point that, one, the alibi was true. He actually was there until about 12:30 or 12:15 a.m., which, who the hell? For that long? Really? I could never. With that many people? You'll never catch me in a party. You will never catch me in a party. Was at Max's house. And the reason they took away his alibi was later revealed because they were in a hit and run. And they were threatened? By who? We'll get to that. So, yeah. They took away his alibi because they didn't want to go to jail because what they did was bad. They didn't kill anyone. I know that I said hit and run, but nobody died. only, permanently disabled a person. um, so, yeah, that was a thing. So, Pip not wanting to ruin her best friend's life, I really should have explained friend groups. Again, I'll probably end up making another video where I have an actual, script or something about this, because I, again, really like this book. She doesn't want to ruin her best friend's life, who she sees as a sister. But the problem is her older sister, her best friend, was involved in all of this and was one of the friends and was very close with Sal and had a crush on Sal. That's not important. It's just a random fact in the book. And in the series, I think, but it's more apparent in the book. Like, it is said over and over and over again. And, like, it's all over the place. Because it's a whole thing of which you're sitting there and you're just like, what? Come again? So now they're trying to figure out a way to prove that Sal is innocent without releasing that photo, because if they release that photo, they're bringing up the fact, hey, why did they lie? And then they have to say why, and that's not great because that will definitely lead to problems. So now they're trying to figure out how to prove Sal innocent without that piece of evidence. And then Pip's dog gets kidnapped. Remember what I said about animal cruelty? This is another thing that is kind of different in the series than it is in that book, because while the dog does go missing both times, the way, where, when it happened, and also the outcome, in a way, is different. So in the book, Pip takes Barney out on a walk in the woods, kind of really close to sunset, so it gets dark and he does not come to her when she calls. And after searching, she goes home and she's just like, I lost him, I lost Barney. And her parents go out along with her and they go looking for this dog. They do not find him. Spoiler alert, no, the dog is not okay. We'll get to it. Different deaths though, which is the whole thing. So, and then at some point, when Pip gets home, later, she gets a text message. I didn't talk about the second note. We'll get to the second note in a second. Also, there's been threatening texts coming from her, who she assumes is from the same person who was sending the notes. We'll get to it. And, man. Sorry, I have a top here that I keep picking up and, just messing with. Man, the ADHD got its claws in me currently. Anyway, she pretty much, the note says, hey, if you want to, or the text says, hey, if you want to see your dog again, stop digging, destroy all your evidence, then you'll get him back. And so Pip does that. What happened in the book is kind of a lot different than what happens in the series. Because in the series, it's a very purposeful murder of the dog. In the book, it isn't. It's an accident. He falls into the river after the murderer, who we'll get to in a minute or two, lets him go. And that's not great. So the dog dies. Rest in peace. And Pip kinda falls apart after that for a bit. And there's a whole fight between her and Ravi, who at this point had, one, figured out that his brother was innocent, and two, had grown kinda close. But because Pip now realizes the dangers and how dangerous this actually is, she wants to be done with this. She's, like, really, really done with this. So she kind of pushes him away, hoping that he'll hate her. Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. And then there's a lot else. But anyway, they go back to looking for Secret Older Guy, who I haven't really talked about because I don't want to in this particular moment. Yada, 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 yada. A lot more, going through some stuff. One broken phone later. Figures out number from the planner that they found of Andy's, and, you know, suddenly a lot of things are clicking. And so they find out that Secret Older Guy is probably Pip's best friend's dad, who was their history teacher, who was her history teacher, actually. And, like, I'm gonna be honest, in both the series and the book, that reveal, one, made a whole lot of sense, but also, two, made me feel so icky. Like, I don't think I had ever felt more, like, grossed out by something, because I don't know what it is. I don't like history teachers. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not explaining that. Not today. But by God, him being a history teacher just made it worse. I should probably say that he was never really, when everything was going on, he wasn't Andy's teacher. That doesn't make it better, though. So yada, yada, yada. A lot of stuff. They think that Andy is alive and he's keeping her in the attic of his old house. And so Pip does something dumb. Now, this is kind of where it fairly largely is almost entirely and completely different in the series. Like, at this point, it's completely different, pretty much, except for, like, main plot points, minus, like, one big thing that we'll get to when we get to the murder of Andy Bell. So, after that, he paints a picture of what really happened. And I'm gonna be honest, every excuse he used, I was just like, I was sitting there being like, for the love of God, just arrest him. Just get it over with. In the series, he locks Pip in the attic with the kidnapped person he had. I didn't talk about that either, but it's fine, it's whatever. That doesn't happen in the book. She does end up in the attic to find who's up there. It's not Andy. Andy is dead. Okay. And there's a whole thing, and they end up driving back, and they pass by the Bells, and Becca Bell, who is Andy's sister, who is alive and well and totally not important. Unlike, her parents don't look hopeful or anything. She looks confused. And I'm sure that doesn't mean anything. But anyway, they figured it out. They figured out who killed Barney and who killed Andy and all that in this whole kidnapping situation. Until Pip just gets a little feeling that something quite isn't right because of something in her conversation with the dad. I shouldn't call him that, the teacher. That's where secret older guy. Of which he's like, I didn't kill Barney. And Pip is like, well, if he didn't kill my dog, then who did? And so devolves into trying to figure out who done did it, who murdered the dog, who murdered Andy, because they seem to be the same person. And all paths lead back to Andy Bell's sister, Becca. And there's a whole thing. In the series, it's a little different, but it's still kind of the same, so it's fine. They talk, and Becca gives the actual full story of what happened. It was an accident. It was not a purposeful murder. Which, great, still murder. Joking, kind of. But the reason it happened is because in 2014, which is the year that all of this took place, sorry, I again, better video sometime, maybe. Something terrible happened to Becca at a calamity party. Hey, remember when I talked about the fact that Andy was a drug dealer and the fact that, drugging and SA were both trigger warnings at the beginning of this video? Yeah, that's coming up again. So, Max Hastings. Assaulted Becca at a calamity party. And she told Andy weeks, possibly, later. And Andy said she did not care. And so they kind of got into a tussle, but at this point Andy was already hurt because of a different tussle at a secret older guy's house. Which, fun. And Andy dies. And so Becca, being afraid and concerned and also, not knowing what the hell to do, decides to hide her body. And throughout this whole conversation, Pip is just like, I'm sorry all of that happened to you. And then at the end, she's like, anyway, you need to run. Because they're gonna figure out that he didn't do it. It's too late, Pip's been drugged. And so Becca takes her and is just like, and like is gonna put her in the same place Andy is. But she can't do it because Pip was nice to her. And that kind of just broke my heart just a slight bit. And so Becca gets caught, the secret older guy is caught, and also Max Hastings is arrested. Hate Max Hastings. All my homies hate Max Hastings. Cause he sucks. He's awful. Like, he pressured his friends into running away from Bonnie instead of calling an ambulance, because he's the one who was driving. And he's also older than everyone, so he would have been tried a little bit differently than them. And he didn't want to go to jail. But, with the multiple, multiple victims of his, uh, they kind of, they arrested him. They arrested Becca. They arrested Secret Older Guy. And they arrested the person that Andy was buying drugs from to sell. So 4 people were arrested by the end of this book, which is a lot different because I believe it was only 2 in this series. Nothing happened to the drug dealer, nothing happened to Max. In fact, for the series, Pip literally talks to Max and it's just like, I will prove that you did something, that you are in the wrong, that you've committed crime. And Max calls her crazy. Which, whatever, fine. And I just really like this book. However, I have been talking for 40 minutes. And I've got other things to do today. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. I have been your host, Ezra. I will see you all next time. Goodbye! Hi, this is just me popping in to say that the rest of this video, because there is more to it unfortunately, is entirely silent. There's not really that much going on, but if you wanted to see the full picture of what I did for this episode of Minecraft Vanilla, you can continue watching on. I'm going to add music, but that's the end of talking. I already said my goodbyes, so sorry. I did not plan this well. I did not record this well. Mostly because I didn't actually know how comparatively I would be able to actually speed this up, and it's not a whole lot. Anyway, thank you so much for watching once again. Goodbye!